All right, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another exciting episode of Live with Jeff, Johnny, and Lee. Jeff, Johnny, how are you gentlemen this afternoon?
Okay, so far.
All right, it's good to hear. There is a lot going on in the world today. The Iranians have seized 2 oil tankers in the Persian Gulf and have taken them to a port. The port is actually here. I can show that to you. And so they've taken them into this port here. They have over 1 million liters of oil on these 2 vessels, and they were seized from near this island right here, which is Farsi Island. Now, the Iranians don't seize a lot of vessels. In the last year, they've only seized 6. And very rarely do they seize 2 at a time, but it's rather interesting that they seized 2 oil tankers just 16 hours before they are supposed to, or 18 hours now, before they are supposed to meet with the Americans for anti-nuclear talks. You gentlemen got anything you want to add to this?
Do we know which which nation they belong to?
Negative. They have not released the flags of where these ships are from yet.
Typically, they seize the IRGC. They will seize British oil tankers in there, but it's my understanding we have carrier strike groups, or we have a carrier strike group, and the Armilla Patrol is still out there. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And so they seized them because they were next to that island, I believe.
Okay. Well, my question is why didn't we stop them? You know, where was the support?
I think they seized him before we had the opportunity to do anything because they were at that island or near that island. So they just swept in and took them.
Well, as I've talked to a British contractor buddy of mine, he's always said that we have to get lucky all the time. They only have to get lucky once.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah. So it's they're going to be looking at any kind of opportunistic. They need a bargaining chip to bring them to the table for these talks. That's what it sounds like to me. Or do you see it differently? I mean, they've got something that they can hold over everybody's heads now, and they've got some. I mean, I don't want to call them hostages, but guests that will be given the finest of accommodations, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. They'll be provided the finest accommodations. Now, I got something I wanted to show you guys. And you guys can see this, right?
Yes, sir.
So the Iranians are doing something similar to the Chinese. And that is they are building models of American aircraft carriers and practicing striking them. So what they've done here is they have built a model of an American aircraft carrier, and they have a tugboat pushing it, and they are practicing striking this American aircraft carrier. Now the Chinese have been working on a tracking system that will track an American aircraft carrier from space as their missile re-enters and create a ballistic trajectory to be able to come down and hit that U.S. carrier. And their objective is to have that kinetic weapon come down and strike the back of the carrier and pass through where the nuclear reactors are. So it releases radioactive material and contaminates everything on the vessel. So it renders not only the carrier, but everything on that carrier worthless. It's a multi-billion-dollar strike all at one time. Now here you can see that this is the mock-up that the Iranians have made. And the interesting part about it is the thing is sitting still. And they are practicing attacking this aircraft carrier and landing on it with Mi-8s that are older than some of our viewers. And so they think, and here's one of their missiles, anti-ship missiles that they've got underneath the drone. They think they're going to fire this.
Hold on, was that a drone or was that a helicopter?
It's a helicopter, but they're claiming that they can fire them from drones. Now, this is the interesting thing. Here, they fired a missile, and you see that it hit over here in the water. Didn't actually hit the carrier itself. But this is what they've been practicing. You know, and how long have they been practicing? This is July the 27th of 2020.
Okay.
At 8:24
So
a.m.
the strikes, well, that's assuming that the timestamp is correct.
Well,
is that thing to size, Lee?
no,
Is that thing?
no, it's
I
smaller.
didn't think so.
Yeah, it's way smaller.
So could this be a mock-up of like a drone carrier? Is that what that looks like?
No,
Kinda like
it's
what
a
they've done with
mock-up
the,
of a U.S. aircraft carrier that they are attacking.
Okay.
They're using it for target practice.
Yeah, they're using it for
I see.
target practice.
So the missile that you're talking about that the Chinese have developed to
Yes.
deal with this. Now you're talking about a precision strike on a moving target.
Yes,
Are the
sir.
Chinese capable of doing that?
Well, they have built a giant model of an aircraft carrier, actually several models of an aircraft carrier out in the desert in China.
Yes.
And they have a giant railroad track that this model moves on at the same speed as an American aircraft carrier, and they've been practicing hitting it. And
I've looked at those.
They've been working on this for over 20 years.
Okay.
In fact,
So
I was
this
first made aware of this in 1997.
that sounds about the time that they came out with the Sunburn missile. Does that sound about right to you
Yes.
guys?
I think the
And-
Sunburn missile was tested in, if I remember right, I think it was 1999, wasn't it, in the Baltic?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're right around the same time period. So
Yep.
they've been working on that for quite some time. You know, and this is what you've talked about before, Jeff, where they want to split one of our carriers in half. The
Yep.
Russians and the Chinese.
Yep. Yeah, this is one of the devastating blows that they can deliver to us, and they've been working on it a long time, and they've been trying to perfect the method because our Navy depends on this mobile air platform, the carrier, and of course, what is it got, 4,000 or 5,000 men on it? It's extremely expensive, but it's one shot Charlie. If the thing becomes vulnerable to a missile type weapon, then you've changed naval warfare. You've taken away that platform from the United States in terms of projecting power. And it also has a prestige thing related to the dollar. If a U.S. aircraft carrier were sunk and they were to be proved not effective anymore, the value of America's ability to defend places like Japan and Australia, places in Europe, that would be it would call into question the U.S. Navy's ability to protect the seas in these countries.
Well, we have guided missile destroyers that we deploy around these carriers. And those guided missile destroyers have missiles on them that are capable of shooting down satellites.
Are you talking about the Aegis
Yes. So
system?
if we're capable of shooting down a satellite, we should easily be able to shoot down their missile. And so
The difference between a missile and a satellite is the satellite's trajectory is pretty easy to calculate. That an incoming missile that may have
well, yeah, but
in-flight
they're
maneuver
still tracking it
capability-
with radar.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, they claim that they can shoot this down. So, you know, have they done it yet? There have been numerous tests that they have done. I don't know how maneuverable the re-entry vehicles were, or if they were moving around or changing their trajectory as they were coming in. But the U.S. claims that they can shoot this down. The simple fact that I'm trying to point out is that the Chinese, and now you can see here from the Iranians, and this is the thing, and I love this, is that the Iranians think that these little gunboat thingies with the 50 cals on them are going to swoop in and take out a United States aircraft carrier, and then they're going to fly in and land on the deck of an aircraft carrier with an Mi-8. Now, I hate to break their heart, but there's a bunch of Marines who were just on that aircraft carrier, and they would just absolutely love to step out onto the deck and open fire on an Mi-8 with some Iranians coming down from underneath of it on a fast rope.
I don't think that the Mi-8 would get anywhere near it because a Sea Whiz would cut them in half before they get anywhere near
Well,
it.
this is true, but what you see here in these videos these are the aspirations of the Iranians. The Iranians think that they're going to come in and seize, and again, this is an aircraft carrier. This is from November the 26th of 2023, where they fly around an American aircraft carrier. So this is, almost a little over 2 years old. And this is where they fly around an aircraft carrier with a drone. And of course, they tried to do this 2 days ago, and that drone went in for what's called reef cycling. It's now a reef as opposed to a drone. So this is at 9:21 a.m. on November the 26th of 2023. And I've went back and looked up longitudes and latitudes and stuff on these things to see where they are. So, and then it was reported that 2 drones were shot down. I can't find anything that says that. But look how they're circling this aircraft carrier. Like they're going to be able to do that with the destroyers operating in the area. And,
It would be destroyed 20 nautical miles away.
yes.
Yeah. Now, okay. Let's look at this in another light. Is it possible? And I'm just throwing all options on the table here. Is it possible that they're planning a low yield EMP strike, and then they take it?
There's
Because then those scenarios would be possible.
yes, and there is word that, like we have been saying, the Russians are now planning on hitting the U.S. with a nuclear weapon. I mean, that just came out.
Can you elaborate?
I don't want to
what
elaborate too
context?
much, but I do want to
Okay,
say
well-
that there is now word that the Russians are openly talking about using nuclear weapons against the United States.
I'm assuming that this is a ploy to bring them to the table for a renegotiation of New START, which that's been announced today. That
Yeah,
those
it
are going to
expired,
be.
so-
Yeah, it expired. Yeah, but
And China
you're gonna
said we're not
we're
going to
gonna
do it.
send. Yeah, China's not going to be involved. They're not going to agree to any kind of nuclear arms things. But it's going to be Witkoff and Kushner that are going to be leading the delegation for the nuclear talks.
Well, if Wyckoff's going in, we're not going to do very well.
Well, I don't think we're going to do very well anyway. These talks, Jeff, you remember SALT 1 and SALT 2 and the ABM treaty? Those things were a joke.
Henry
They were a joke.
Kissinger, was everything to do with that. And the Russians, basically, they fooled us at SALT 1 because we didn't really understand about what they were going to do with Merving.
Yeah, there's a book on this. If anybody, but it's out of print, but if you can get your hands on it, Why the Soviets Violate Arms Control Treaties, by Joseph Douglas. Read
Yeah.
that book, and it'll
Isn't it
tell
because
you,
they
tell you
lie?
all about it. Yeah. Well, how dare you? They're
Yeah,
they're
well, why do
negotiating
they
in good
lie?
faith.
Why do they lie? Don't they want to have an agreement? No, because they see themselves as at war with us, and breaking a treaty is a way to get an advantage that they couldn't get otherwise. And they would like, I mean, Shana, I think, has an article in there in which he talks about, they would like to eliminate nuclear weapons, except they wouldn't really get rid of theirs. And they would prepare biological weapons and other kinds of weapons as substitutes.
They haven't gotten rid of theirs,
No.
even though the supposed collapse of the Soviet Union,
Yeah.
they never got rid of theirs.
Well, there was Peter Pry tells the story that they were going to disassemble their nuclear warheads, so we built a facility for them to pull them apart, and it had all these cost overruns. And then finally, when they got done with it, they wouldn't let us in, and there was no verification of them pulling any warheads apart. And what Peter said to me was, well, we built it, we spent, I don't know, was it $2-3 billion? A facility that can take nuclear warheads apart can build them. So we just built them a brand new nuclear weapons construction facility for free, and we're not allowed to inspect it anymore. And we had no verification of them taking apart any nuclear weapons.
Well, it's national security. You know,
Even the New York Times had a piece on this admitting it.
This afternoon, boy, X is really having some problems. This afternoon, I got this from the Russian Foreign Ministry. You know that nice young lady they've got up there, Maria Zakharova. She said that Russia is willing to. Nails on a chalkboard, that woman. She said that Russia is willing to remove the enriched uranium that Iran has. She says the presence of the material in the Islamic Republic does not violate any agreements. She said that Russia is willing to take what remains of Iran's enriched uranium. And at the same time, it is important to note that the aforementioned stockpiles belong to Iran. Their presence in no way contradicts Tehran's obligations under the Treaty of the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. And Tehran has full rights to the material, including deciding whether to remove it from Iranian territory and where to export it to.
Interesting. So they export it to Iran, to Russia, and Russia provides them with nuclear weapons like they did for North Korea.
Yes.
Great plan.
First round of nuclear talks between the United States and Russia are scheduled to take place on Friday at 10 a.m.
I just can't believe that Trump is agreeing to these talks.
And China's not coming to the table.
10 hours
they said
from now.
no.
10 hours from now is when the
Yeah,
negotiations.
I mean, that's the other thing. China's building nuclear weapons like sausages. So we're going to lower our numbers on the speculation that the Russians are going to lower theirs like they've ever done in the past, and that the Chinese aren't doubling down. You know, the idea that we can make an agreement to limit nuclear weapons with one enemy and the other one is not doing it, that's absurd. It's just absurd. It's just one more of Trump's non sequiturs. His policy doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to have an even table when only one or two of the players are following the rules.
Yeah, no, they don't follow rules like most criminals. You know, they don't have any respect for international law. They never did. The idea that we have that they might observe international law has been a fantasy that goes back to these agreements. You know, before Kissinger came on the scene, we had the test ban agreement, you know, with the Russians, but and that was fairly easy to observe. You couldn't basically have a above ground nuclear test and people wouldn't notice. But now there's so many nuances and it's so difficult to police this that I just don't think we're going to have an honest accounting.
No, and this also raises the question, we do have new nuclear warheads that are currently in development. I mean, we've got new submarines, new boomers that are coming online in 3 years, 2 years and 11 months. They're coming.
Well, especially if we don't want to build a replacement for the Minuteman III, then what happens? We don't develop one, and they've got a big robust land-based missile force. How is that fair?
As well as a mobile missile force.
Yeah,
We don't
that's
have
right,
that at all.
mobile.
We don't have a
Yeah.
single intercontinental ballistic missile that can move around on a truck.
I mean, people forget that in terms of modern money, we spent something like $3 trillion in equivalent 1960s money building all those rockets, both on the ships and on the land, and the bombers and so on. That's how much it cost us to set up our nuclear deterrent. And we're just not willing to put that kind of commitment in now. And we want to wiggle out of it.
Well, I also think that this is contradictory to the administration and, you know, Trump in particular coming out every other day, it seems like, and saying, well, we're winning and we've got this success and we've got that success and we've got peace and we've got the golden era and we've got, you know, all of this, but you can't You can't say that and then say, well, we're going to build nuclear warheads. We're going to build nuclear weapons. That doesn't, like, the two narratives don't coincide with each other.
He's the peace president.
Yeah, he stopped 8 wars. He stopped 8 wars. And you know, we're going to take Greenland for national security.
He's going to guarantee, might as well take Santa Claus and all the elves and everything and the reindeer because that red suit looks so good on him. He could make Christmas great again.
I'm the Queen of England.
I was wondering, Lee, you're getting ready to go to Florida. Have you reconsidered? Are you going to do the coconut bikini and the thing to get the view? You know, you're going to do that now so you can get the strikes taken off of everything.
No, I was going to do the pregnant Demi Moore.
Anyway, shall we move over to Venezuela? You're muted.
They've got some issues down there.
They have a few issues, yeah. So they've been going through and they've been arresting some people. There was a Colombian businessman, a prominent Colombian businessman that was arrested yesterday. I was telling you about it, Jeff. It's one of Maduro's buddies, Alex Saab. He was arrested. He was ordered arrested by Delcy Rodriguez. So it seems as though, and the head of was the deputy head of military counterintelligence. He was arrested, and I think it was the head of counterintelligence. He was arrested too. So they're starting to turn on their own there. But the other thing that's important to consider here is, as an act of good faith, right? Because you know the Rodriguez government and everybody that's involved there. You know they're people of their word, right? You know they're not going to lie to you. They're going to give amnesty to all political prisoners. Now, it's very important for people to understand the wordage here. Amnesty. What does amnesty mean? Amnesty means you're forgiven of the crime, but you can be rearrested for it later. They're not giving pardons to anyone. If you give a pardon, that means you cannot charge them with the same crime again and put them back in prison after you put them on trial again. That would be a double jeopardy thing. Can't do that. So instead, they're saying, well, everyone, apart from serious crimes, whatever that means, apart from serious crimes and serious criminals, they're going to be given amnesty, especially the political types. They're going to be given amnesty. But again, that means they'll keep their word today, but when the heads are turned and all the business deals are done and the contracts are signed, they'll rearrest them again later. They'll put them back in the same torture chambers, which is what those places are.
That's true. They are torture chambers. And I'm trying to get the fact that we have, I guess what we could call, maybe sheep dipping would be a good term for this. The Navy, north of Venezuela, has been flying drones. An MQ-4 Triton has been flying north of Aruba, and it's Black Cat. Well, at least this time they're actually calling it an MQ-4. They've also had an E-11B circling here. Now, for those of you that don't know what an MQ-4 Triton is, it is a Navy version of a Global Hawk. Flies about 50,000 feet, can see 250 miles out in any direction. And the MQ is the Navy's version of that, made for looking for ships and submarines and signals intelligence and so on and so forth. In addition, they've had an E-11B. Now, E-11 is a looking glass aircraft. It is command and control. It's the relay node. Look at it as the modem between your computer and the rest of the world. For the military, it's the modem between all forms of communications that all branches of military use. It's an airborne Trojan Spirit, for those of you that know what a Trojan Spirit is. Some of you may know that I'm the guy that invented the Trojan spirit, so it just so happens I know a little bit about this bird because I worked on the C-12, which is, well, let's just say that this has some of the capabilities of a C-12 plus a shitload more. The point is that they have been flying this bird north of Venezuela now for a week. And in doing that, this is showing that the U.S. is actually making plans and having plans drawn up for further actions in Venezuela. So we've been continuing to monitor the situation regularly down there, monitoring air traffic and other aircraft operating in the area, because the U.S. is now bringing Black Cat 6 down there almost on a daily basis. And like I said, there's an E-11 operating in the area. So this is not quiet yet. It hasn't gone away. Also,
Our naval.
They're talking about going into Cuba in the near future. And, well, I wonder why they would want to do that. I wonder if they want to go see the kitchen.
I would assume so. My question to that was going to be, are you aware of, do we still have all of our naval assets
Yes,
that
sir.
are in theater down there? So we haven't left.
No. Nope. We're still there.
Okay.
And we're still shipping stuff in. More stuff shows up every day.
Yeah. So Trump said the other day that he made another comment on Cuba. Cuba's a failing nation, right? Cuba's failing on its face. Is Cuba failing on its face, Jeff? I mean, we've looked at it. We were watching what was going on, whether it's propaganda or not. But they had a whole lot of people in Havana that were out there, not protesting, having a rally in favor of the regime. So, is it really failing? Are they? Because we've choked off some of their oil, and now we've kind of essentially put a blockade in place from the Mexican tankers that were coming over to kind of make up for the difference of the Venezuelan oil that's not getting there. So, are they really in trouble?
The problem with blockades against communist countries is they just take it out of the height of their people. So their people suffer, and the regime, they just still, they eat better, they have everything better, the people that, and so the people that are really being hurt, and this is very important for them to do this, are the people we want to liberate. And then they can tell their people, look, the Americans hate you, look what they're doing to you. And they think they see this as a win-win. So they can blame the Americans, how evil the Americans are. But they're not, the people, communists controlling the regime, they're not hurt by it.
No, they're not.
People with empty stomachs, look, rocks don't hurt tanks. You see what's happened in Iran. 90% or more of the people of Iran hate the regime. But they don't have weapons, they don't have heavy weapons especially, so they can't possibly fight the regime. They get mowed down, 41,000 arrested under death sentence. We don't know, 20, 30,000 mowed down in the street. The regime's fine. They don't care.
In Colombia. Yeah, in Colombia. Colombia's on the list too. You got them talking about, and you got Hegseth saying stuff about, and Rubio saying stuff about Colombia.
Blockade we used it on Germany in World War I, and it starved the German people, and we won the war. That was a war of peoples. These regimes are tyrannous. They enslave their peoples. Their people are our natural ally. And so the problem with this is that we hurt the people, and one thing they don't want in the regime is they don't want a middle class. They don't want the people to be prosperous, because then their people might have the wherewithal to overthrow them. If they're poor and they're desperate and they are barely able to eat, and the regime can decide whether they starve or not, that empowers the regime. Oh, you better be loyal to the regime or you won't eat tomorrow. Your food stamps or your food tickets won't be punched. So I don't know. We've tried these on regimes. There is an uprising in Iran, but it's not succeeding without our help. And the vice president went in, and Megyn Kelly interviewed the vice president, J.D. Vance, and he said, oh, yeah, we're not going to, if we do a strike there, it's not going to be for regime change. It's going to be to get a new nuclear deal there. That's what he says, right?
I didn't catch that. I must have just glossed over that.
Yeah, I saw it on there. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I just listened to the first few moments, but it said in the headlines, JD Vance says they're not going for regime change. So I think she just did the interview today, maybe. I just
So what's
saw it
the
on
point?
YouTube. Yeah.
What's the point of all this then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So Trump is not going to do this to change the regime? Well, of course, bombing alone won't do it. You have to actually support the people and you have to organize them. You have to, just like helping the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. The only problem is the people we ended up helping in Afghanistan in the 1980s were basically under control of the KGB and the GRU. So
And you had mentioned Colombia a little while ago.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
I know nothing.
Just remember I said that.
Very well.
It's not over. This is why I keep telling everybody they need to keep watching the Caribbean. We are not done down there.
I don't think that it is over. No, of course not. I was not thinking that. But what I'm curious as to is what's our objective here? We're, according to what Vance apparently said in the interview, well, it's not about regime change. It's about making a deal. This is the same thing we're doing with Venezuela. We're making a deal, aren't we? I mean, we've sent delegations down there now. We've got a new mission from the United States that's opening up in Caracas. We've got people that are already on the ground. I don't understand what we're actually doing here. We're making deals with this. This makes no sense. It makes no sense at all.
Oil money.
These people, oil money. Okay, fine, but you've got Rodriguez who says, yes, we're going to do deals with the U.S. We've got oil companies that are going to sign with us. Chevron and these other they're going to sign contracts with us. They're going to come in here. They're going to restart the oil business. We're going to pass legislation to get these hydrocarbons laws and everything going. And she's been invited to the White House and she's going to go. Trump says that they're working with them. They've got a great relationship. And then when you watch her speech in the Parliament Assembly in Caracas, she says, we're not going to be dictated to by anybody. It's typical communism. We're talking out of both sides of our mouths.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Somebody wants to know if we can talk about what's going on in Cuba and the fact that the Russians are still flying stuff in there. And they're not the only ones that are flying stuff in there. China is too.
What specifically about Cuba? I mean, we've gone through Cuba. What exactly do you want to know? I mean, do you want to know about
what we think that they're still sending in there? I still think they're sending in more missiles and more weapon systems and building up their surveillance system that they have down there. Not to mention the fact that the Russians have a Navy base there now where they bring in submarines with nuclear missiles on them and ships that have hypersonic missiles with nuclear warheads on them. So, to think that the Cuban Missile Crisis was a big deal back in the 60s, that's not shit compared to what we're dealing with now. The missiles that they would launch back in the 60s, we would know well before they advanced or they were launched, and they would take a while to get here, even though it's only 90 miles. With the ships that they're bringing in down there that have hypersonic missiles on them with nuclear tips, they can fire a missile and within like 3 minutes it can hit somewhere in the United States. So it's a lot more dangerous situation now than it was during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
I think that on top of everything you just mentioned, I think there's one thing that, because of what we've seen with the kitchen missiles, I think they're moving stealth bombers in there as well, as in the Tu-22Ms. I think they're moving them in, and we're just not seeing it. I think that they have those in those bunkers. They can fly them in on Antonovs, and they can fly them in on. They can get part of those fuselages on IL-76s, can't they? If they put nothing else in there, they can get pieces of it in there. I'm not hearing you. I didn't hear you.
I see. No.
Sorry, I said I don't know if they can get it into an IL-76. I don't think they can get it into an IL-76. I haven't seen one to be able to be put. I mean, I guess you could break it down enough that you could get it in there. But they can
Yeah.
surely.
But it takes
get
no
in
time.
with an Antonov.
With a short, with a small team of guys, it takes no time to reassemble these things. You said they can have one together in what, 24 hours if they had all the personnel?
3 days at the longest.
3 days.
If they tore it way down, 3 days. If they bring it in an Antonov, they can do it in 24 hours.
So see, there you go. And we've got Russian tanks. You saw the stockpiles of Russian tanks that are just outside of Havana. They've hollowed out a mountain out there. You remember that? Well, they had them all stacked up outside, Lee, and which means what's that? If it's the same MO with the Russians as it is for the countries in their orbit, then if they're outside, what does that mean?
It means that the facility is full and there's no more room in the inn.
Yes,
that's what that means. And you've also seen where the Russians are rebuilding their base over next to Finland.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. So an old Soviet base that's over there, and that's the one, the one that had the amphibious vehicles. They've been expanding that one too. I went back and I looked at that again. They've been massively expanding that. They've put in all new training areas all around that entire facility there. So we're going to have to go back and look at that. I need to go back and pull it this week, and we'll take a look at it next week. But they're massively expanding all that.
Yeah, they're continuing to build up all over the place, and we're going to continue to monitor it, map it, and track it. I'm working on a new AI model to be able to manipulate the maps and the information that we've got since ChatGPT shut me down. So we're going to fix that. They killed Jack.
What?
Yeah, they took so I created analytic models for Jack to be able to do image recognition, to spot fighter jets on the ground and to spot dragon's teeth, and to manipulate all of the KMI or KML and KMZ files that we have, as well as all the spreadsheets that you're familiar with that we do for tracking all of the aircraft. And they have removed all of those tools from my AI, so I'm no longer allowed to analyze any of that information.
You get any explanation for why they would do that? They don't want the American people to know that there's a buildup in war preparations going on by Russia and China?
They shut it down on my software, and I haven't heard anybody else complain about it.
Is it just me, or is it that the Russians and Chinese control the social media apps and all this stuff?
Oh, they do. I mean, look at Russia controlling, Rumble, controlling Kick, controlling Buy Me a Coffee. Look at the Chinese controlling TikTok and other platforms. So yeah, all these platforms that everybody is using for social media are owned by the Chinese and the Russians. And the fact that you agree to the terms of service means they can steal all the information off of your cell phones. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous what they're seeing. And then, of course, nobody's better at stealing information than Elon Musk. As soon as your phone ties into a Tesla car, it takes everything off your phone, email addresses, everything, you name it. It downloads all of your contacts. It downloads basically everything that's on your phone, goes into your Tesla and goes back to Elon. And why he hasn't been prosecuted for that shit, I guess it's because you agree to do it when you get into the car. But, a Tesla is such a spy machine that the Chinese have banned them at different cities inside of China. There's cities in China that if you try to drive into that city in a Tesla, you'll be arrested. Most likely.
I wonder what those cities are hiding.
Oh, yeah. I wonder what they're hiding.
P4 Labs.
Yeah, I didn't think my hometown was, if the Russians came, I didn't think they'd find anything that was a threat to them.
Yeah. I showed this to you last night, Jeff. Lee, have you ever seen one of these? This is a bot farm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what these are tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands. Each one of these is a smartphone. Okay. Yep. This is what the Russians and the Chinese have entire buildings full of these, multi-story buildings full of these things. And they all tie into the back into a mainframe. And this is how they get view counts, and they get
right. This is how Scott Ritter gets 190,000 views on the show from a man who's a 2-time convicted pedophile and who hasn't been right about anything. I mean, on day 3 of the war between Russia and Ukraine, on day 1 of the war between Russia and Ukraine, Scott Ritter said that Russia was going to take Ukraine in 3 days. That was 4 years ago. So yeah, I'm well aware of what that is and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, these people become famous spouting lies. They become accepted. Their crimes are forgotten. Then honest citizens who have been researching this and looking at it talk about it, and they shadow ban us, and they interfere with your activities here. They take away your tools to interpret what the Russians are doing. You think the CIA? It's like we're it. You mean the CIA isn't really watching because they've been infiltrated? Because the CIA was watching Jeffrey Epstein's activities overseas and the FBI at home. And how many decades was he running underage girls? And basically feeding them to people like Bill Gates and Bill Clinton and Trump, right? All these important people. How many senators, how many congressmen, how many scientists, how many judges went to on the Lolita Express?
Well, this is the problem. This is
And
what
why
we don't
weren't we
notice.
protected? Why weren't those girls protected? Some of them were Americans. A lot of them were Russians, by the way. He was importing Russian girls and meeting with Putin, as the Daily Mail pointed out. So we're not being protected. And we got
And
Tulsi
the Russian
Gabbard
girls come complete with STDs.
Well,
Don't believe
poor
me?
Bill
Just
Gates
ask Bill
needed-
Gates.
Yeah, Bill Gates wanted to have a way to trick his wife so that she didn't realize he had an STD, right? From those girls that Epstein was. Look, this is just nasty. This is nasty business, and we're not being protected by our government. And this is important. And they would censor us and shadow ban us from talking about this and try to keep us from the public. And they would, Scott Ritter with his lies, and of course, pedophile, right? Convicted pedophile
Hinkle, yeah,
himself.
Jackson Hinkle and McGregor and all these
Colonel
people.
McGregor,
they get
same lies.
boosted up to the top. Yeah,
Yeah, they get boosted up to the top. Tucker Carlson. They make these people into celebrities. They make them rich. They give them these advantages. And Americans who are just trying to ask their fellow citizens. You know, I got on X today, I got called, Jeff Nyquist is just a cult leader.
What?
I've never asked
Oh
anybody to
yeah, I've
follow
been called
me.
that many times.
I'm just
a
saying,
leader of
read
a
these
cult.
books, you know, people be citizens, step up and know what's going on, be ready. Because we're going to have to, at some point, speak up, right? It can't be just Johnny, me, and you, and a couple of other people, Trevor and Jimmy. We can't be the only ones that are noticing, you know, and saying no. The whole country has to eventually notice and say no. But everybody's it's the Jews, or it's the Illuminati, or it's the banksters, or it's the, you know, Rockefellers or the Rothschilds, but it's never the Russians and Chinese. No, they never.
Well,
do
I told
anything
you.
wrong.
I told you the Daily Mail article, right, that we were talking about yesterday, that was talking about how Epstein was a Russian agent.
Yeah.
Well, it's all over the alt-right
Oh yeah,
UK
because the
press
guy
today.
that wrote it is associated with some Jewish organization. So he's
Yes,
obviously
he got
a
some.
Mossad
He got
agent.
some third place award from some journalist organization that was sponsored by a Jewish organization. So clearly, this is a Mossad operation.
This is just,
I
you know,
guess-
if it's Jewish, it's toxic. They're taking over the world, they claim. And it's like, are we going back to Auschwitz now? Are we going to have to dig up Himmler and the Wannsee conference and do it all over again? Is that what they want? I mean, it's just plain nuts. The Nazis lost World War II. Where are these narratives coming from?
Russia. That's where they're coming
Yes.
from. That's
Yes.
where it's coming from.
Yes, they're
'Cause if
coming
you-
from Russia.
They are, and because if you look at the Russian channels, right, the Russian propaganda channels, and if you understand, if you have the combination to the lock, as Jimmy puts it, there is no lock. Once you understand it, once you know the truth about something, there is no more brainwashing. You cannot be brainwashed. And when I look at this stuff, the Russian propaganda channels literally call the Ukrainians that are fighting back against them the Ukrainian Wehrmacht. And that
Yeah, the Ukrainian, very much. And it's run by a Jew named Zelensky, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's just
ridiculous.
preposterous. So preposterous. I mean, look, and then they gaslit everybody about global warming. Did you catch this blizzard? Did you catch this? We got dumped on by snow again. 2 weekends in a row here.
The fountains.
Buried in snow in North Carolina. What the heck?
The fountains at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, froze solid 2 days ago.
Oh, I can top that. Cuba, the all-time coldest temperature ever recorded 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Did they get snow in Cuba?
They could have. It got down to freezing, 0 Celsius. And
Yeah, that's
there is a
tropical
weather
island.
model that says, now I don't know if I had to check it again. It was from a few days ago. There's a, excuse me. There is a weather model that is showing that Houston, Texas, on the 17th of February is supposed to get between 24 and 27 inches of snow. That'll be an all-time record for Houston.
See,
guys don't have any-
we're in the grand solar minimum. Come on, people, and there's no global warming. It's cooling, and they're still mouthing this nonsense. The second, another cold winter, worse than the last one, and it's in the middle of the solar cycle. These should be the warmest winters of the decade, and they're the cold. This is the coldest. Next year, I guarantee you, will be colder, and the year after, and the year after, until they're just barely able to grow potatoes in Canada, right?
Well, that's what Valentina Zarkova said. She
That's
said,
what
we're
she
going to have
told
to figure
us.
out how to grow potatoes and root vegetables.
That's
That's
what
going
a
to be
scientist
it.
told us. Yeah, that's going to be it because
That's what we're growing here.
I can't, I'm in the South. We're not supposed to have really snow here. Light dusting
They had
now and
snow
then.
in Myrtle Beach. Did you see the videos? I couldn't believe it. Myrtle Beach is totally white. The roads are
It
totally
snowed.
white. The
It
vehicles
snowed
are fighting their way through the snow in Myrtle
Saturday,
Beach.
yeah,
That's
it
South
snowed all
Carolina.
day. It snowed all day here. I paid a neighbor kid to help me clear my driveway over so much snow. I mean,
You're
it was
actually-
like I could not. It was a lot of shoveling. It's like a foot of snow on my driveway.
Did you not get a snow shovel? I thought you said you were going to go to Costco and get some snow
I
shovel.
hired him because he had one. They ran out of them at
Oh, I
the
see.
store. I
Yeah,
came
okay.
before they got them in, and then I came after they'd all sold out. Yeah, you practically had to hang out at Lowe's to get one. I will.
Oh, you had to wait in line like for a new iPad for a snow shovel.
I was ridiculous.
Wait in line
Well,
overnight.
they didn't have enough snow shovels here, and so not all the neighbors have them. So I just, give them a tenner and
Yeah, of
and then
course.
I'll
Yeah,
switch off with them.
honestly,
I'll work on it. Then you can do it as he warms his hands, and then
Sure.
'cause he didn't have any gloves. He didn't have gloves.
Oh, poor kid. You know what? When I was seriously, I grew up in Ohio, so I was a kid. My parents took us out every year and got us new snow shovels. Me and my brother got us new snow shovels, and we would go around clearing the sidewalks and the driveways of the people that asked for it. We would just go through, and they would tell us, that they would stick their head out. The neighbor would stick their head out the door and say, "When you're finished, come up here." We'd get a hot chocolate and maybe $1. And that, but back in the 80s,
Yeah, right.
Back in the
Exactly.
60s, I used to do that. In fact, in
Yeah, well,
the 60s,
and
I used to shovel the entire main street of my town, the sidewalks all the way up and all the way back on Main Street, the entire length of town. And I had to do the sidewalk of every widow and every elderly person. And most of the time I did it for free. That never even came out. But that was just my dad's way of teaching me responsibility and caring for other people. So I was in the paper numerous times about it, throwing the snow. I've got an article laying around here somewhere I can show you, but of me doing it at 7 years old.
yeah, well, it was just Saturday and Sunday was just like another day in Michigan where I moved from. It's like, oh, this is exactly like Michigan. Same temperatures, same amount of snow, everything. It's like, what? What is going on?
It's out of the frying pan into the fire. People didn't know. People in Texas. I was listening to some people in Texas. I was talking to some people in Texas, and they didn't know what exploding trees were. They thought it was a joke. They thought it was like some kind of a misnomer. They
Well,
said,
they
"Oh,
hadn't
no,
been in an
trees
ice
don't
storm
explode."
before, huh?
Yeah, they said trees don't explode. I said, no, you don't get it. I said they'll get so overloaded with ice that the trees just can't handle it, and so they'll flop over and they'll
break in the
they'll
middle, explode in the
yeah,
middle.
they'll
Yeah.
explode. And they're
Yeah,
like,
that's
well,
what
that
happened
can't
in my old neighborhood.
It's
You
like,
know,
that can't happen. I said, yes, it can. And it has.
in northern Michigan I think it was early April or late March, just below the Mackinac Bridge where I live, 10,000 trees blew up that way in an ice storm. I was glad that we weren't there then. Those are miserable to be through. The area didn't have power for some areas for more than a week because it took down so many power lines.
Well,
But yeah,
there's a lot of people that still don't have power from this storm.
we were lucky we got snow instead of the ice storm. But still, they've got ice storms predicted for us. You know, I hope it'll turn out to be snow. But we
There
had
you go. These are all of the counties that still don't have power.
before what was it, the night before last or 2 nights ago, was Monday night, it got to be 8 degrees here, North Carolina, 8 degrees. Right? And we're going to have these low temperatures again before this month is out. So, you know, what is happening to the climate? Somebody tell me, somebody explain it to me.
Called
How we can have
GSM.
Yeah, grand solar minimum.
You guys are delusional. This is global boiling. Clearly, that's what it is.
Yeah,
You heard the head of the UN. You know, it's Mr. Gutierrez. He said global boiling. You know, it's the era of global boiling is here.
Oh, yeah.
I was told. I'm not making this up. I was told by somebody because they were talking about this global warming, and climate change and everything. And I said, okay, well, then explain to me why it's getting colder. You know, why are the temperatures dropping? And the person said, I'm not making this up. This is a person that is university educated. They said that I was not sophisticated or educated enough to understand that the cooling was the warming. I just kind of stood there for a minute and said, okay. And I just left it. I couldn't go any further.
This is
I
the
couldn't.
King's new clothes all over again. This
We
is
have
like
to
right
pass
out of
the
fun.
bill to find out what's in it.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
no,
close, same thing.
it's just the swindling and the gaslighting is just so extreme. And look, they just won't quit. And you know, we had the inordinate rain. It's all happening just like Valentina Zarkova said, just like Svensmark's books predict in his theory. This is something that recurs, and it's happening now. And these imbeciles who will believe something, if you put a PhD in front of your name, they'll believe anything that comes out of your mouth. They are just completely victimized by it. And you know what's going to happen in 5 years. They're going to somehow come up with some kind of thing that the global warming stopped the jet stream and caused the ice. They're gonna convolute it around and make the warming cause the cooling.
It'll be that, or I can see that, you know, because you got Al Gore already saying that. He's already saying something about jet stream stopping. Okay, so I can see that.
And Al Gore
I
was
also
so right that sea level's up 15 feet, right, over what it was when he made his stupid movie.
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're
yeah.
flooded here. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, sea
Yeah.
water. Yeah, Obama bought his house right there by the Atlantic, and
Yeah.
so it's obviously coming into his living room now.
Yeah, well, Al Gore's got a spot there in Malibu. Yeah, apparently that's underwater now too. But this, I think it'll be what you just said. They'll make up some kind of excuse. They'll say, well, the jet stream stalled and, you know, global warming caused this and it's man-made climate change and whatever. But I also think that they could use the wind and solar thing. They'll say, well, see, we did all of these things and they worked.
Oh.
So that's what, I'm just saying that's what they'll say. Well, these things actually worked. If we didn't do this, then we wouldn't be in this position. But we did too much of it, so we're going to have to dial back on it a little bit. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's
given
they will, you know, if they can have Tulsi Gabbard give a speech in front of a bunch of communists, and then gave the same speech in front of a group of conservatives and have them applaud, you know that people have just had their heads turned all the way around, you know, cranked all the way around the backwards way, that nobody's thinking straight. You just know it.
Well, my dad used to say that all these global warming people, they have one of 3 degrees. They either have a BS, an MS, or a PhD. So the BS is a bullshit degree. The MS is more of the same, and the PhD is piled higher and deeper.
Yeah.
How do you put it? The higher your education level, you know more and more about less and less.
Yeah, that's what the joke was when I was in graduate school. You know, it's all about specialization. Getting a PhD is about knowing more and more about less and less.
Yeah, and you couldn't get through that without committing yourself. You know, that was the thing, is they wanted a commitment out of you.
Yeah, no, they were going to mess with me. Well, I made the mistake of actually saying something negative about Karl Marx to a bunch of undergraduates, and that was the end for me. I was countering their program of making little Marxists out of them. I was not going along with the program. And it's like, hey, we swore an oath of allegiance to the California Constitution and the U.S. Constitution. You can't order me to make little Marxists out of them when I took that oath to be a teacher at the University of California. You can't do that. That's against the law. But who got punished? They took my teaching job away.
They'll just blackball you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't make a living in academia. I couldn't make a living as a high school teacher. They put stuff in my file to block my career. So, you know, that's the thing. You think this isn't real? They mess with your livelihood. They might as well put a bullet in your head. Because if you can't make a living doing what you want to do, they've just wrecked your life. So these people have no compunction.
You know what you're describing? You're describing what we were talking about now, as in like you've got the promoted types, like the Scott Ritter types and the Napolitanos, the Tucker Carlsons.
Absolutely.
Those are the promoted types because they go along with the program. So they're boosted up there. You know, they've made the deal.
Some of them might not even fully understand what they've committed to.
Right. And
Scott Ritter might not know that Russia is still communist. He might not realize that.
Maybe not. But my point is that you were being subjected to that, and it's before the digital era, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's behaviorism. It's stimulus and response. Look, if you do this, you get a cookie. If you do that, you get, slapped around. So what are you going to do? You're going to do what they want because you're going to get a cookie. If you go against them, you're going to get slapped around. And so they've subtly trained the entire population, the professional population, academics, journalists, TV people, entertainers, creative people, booksellers, everybody. They've got everybody, and they make sure that they enforce it, that it's enforcement by cultural measures, cultural punishments. You're unpopular. Nobody will buy your stuff. Rather than sending you to a gulag, right? In America, they don't send you to a gulag. You just, your career is derailed and you don't get good stuff, right?
Well, we have digital gulags now.
Yeah, well, this is one. Welcome to our. Yeah. We're in one. Well, we're in a digital ghetto, which is we're waiting to be sent to Auschwitz, to the digital.
Well, that's true, yeah.
But we're in the ghetto and probably in general government somewhere, waiting for the train, metaphorically, the digital train, to carry us to Auschwitz to either be forced labor or to be exterminated, by the Zyklon B. So this is what is going on. And they've made it into a culture machine rather than Stalin says, you were a wrecker and so we're sending you for 5 years to do a sentence in a work camp. Dig the White Sea Canal or dig gold with your bare hands in Kolyma or something like that. That's what we're at right now. And the thing is, it has happened so gradually, so seamlessly, and so carefully that nobody realizes that the chains are on them, that they're on the galley. They're galley slaves, basically. Row, row, row. And if somebody says, wait a minute, where are we going? We're going to the socialist paradise. I don't want to row anymore. Off the ship, into the drink.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, and I was pointing this out when we were looking at the platforms. They have all the alternatives. And when I say they, I mean the Russians, and the Chinese. They have the alternative platforms. They knew that, and it's when we got to the point. I think it was right when we got COVID, when the Chinese sent us COVID, and people were getting thrown off of YouTube and iTunes and all that stuff for medical misinformation. They didn't have anywhere to go. Their followings that they had built up for years had been taken away. Their accounts had been shut down. that was, as Jeff was saying, that's people's livelihoods.
Yeah.
You know, that's people's income. That's their business that they've started up through these other companies. And now that you're beholden to these other companies and what they say goes.
Yeah.
So you're not independently employed. You're not.
They'll try to hire you, and you'll start out writing about Russia. And I've had this with 2 outfits I wrote for. And they'll say, we don't want you to write about Russia anymore or communism anymore. And then if you don't obey that, they just let you go. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the deal. It's the censorship is real. The control, look, the idea that, I mean, we have freedom of speech in the sense that the Congress can make no law abridging the free, but private individuals, there's no law against that. Against everybody coming under some kind of peer group pressure to boycott you. And so Jeffrey Epstein, he's the big philanthropist, he's a billionaire, he's got his island, he's friends with all the top people. And we're just a bunch of crazy, kooky people who say there's something rotten in Denmark. And nobody's going to listen to us. But I can tell you they will, all the people, probably 1 million people have heard this message from one of us or somebody over the last 30 years because it's been out there. And when all these things come true, and it's all undeniable because the day is coming when everything we're talking about is going to be undeniable. Okay, it happened just the way Nyquist said, the way Johnny Anderson said, the way Lee Wheelbarger said, the way Galitzin said, the way Shana said. It happened the way all these people said. But it'll be too late. The tragedy will have already unfolded. Hundreds of millions or billions of people would be dead. Cities will be in ruins. And goodness knows what state we'll be in. But then everybody will know, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I actually wrote that in the late 80s and sort of polished it in the early 90s, and it was published in 98 for the first time. But yeah, that's yours. That's my workbook, how I worked out where we were headed, based on the defector literature and what I knew about communist subversion at the time. I know a lot more now, and it's just so obvious. It's just so bleeding obvious. And that Daily Mail headline, it says, Epstein's operation was a Russian honey trap. Right there in big bold letters.
Yep.
And they've got testimony. Not only
It was.
It was. Ghislaine Maxwell was the daughter of a KGB agent. They say that there. They just got it. The security services confirm that Robert Maxwell was a KGB agent recruited in the 1970s by the Soviets. So his daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, is a partner of Jeffrey Epstein. So what, he's Mossad? No, he's not.
No.
The KGB is way better than Mossad, sorry.
So here's how it works, right? They're trying to spin it this way too. So there was an email within the dumps that Epstein wrote saying that Robert Maxwell, was killed by Mossad on his yacht.
Well, if I were Mossad, I would have wanted to kill Maxwell too, because if he was helping Mossad, he was a double agent working for the KGB now, wasn't he?
Yeah, yes, right. He wanted, apparently Maxwell wanted 400 million pounds from the Israelis, and they wouldn't give it to him. Apparently.
He was blackmailing them.
Yes, that's what it sounds like to me.
He was blackmailing them, and yeah, it's dangerous to blackmail people. They can kill you. You know, they can just say, forget you, we're going to rub you out.
But it's, the money, we talked about it last night, the money, it all went through the same networks.
Yeah.
All of it. Everything went through the same networks. Yeah, all of it. Everything goes back to the red cocaine money, right?
White slavery and now white underage slavery, child trafficking. Look, there's the book by Ann Lucas, and I'm reading it now. She is an amazing woman. She was in a pedophile network in Belgium. She was a Belgian. She started out as a Belgian girl. Her mother sold her to this network when she was 10 years old, or about that. Imagine that. 10 years old. She's sold to a network. She is being molested by a German chancellor. She doesn't name who it is. And the guy one of the top guys in that network, he's the Belgian Epstein. He went to prison. But they said, oh, it's just a one-shot deal. It's him. It's not a network. And they smeared the witnesses who said it was a network involving a lot of high-profile people. They smeared those people. And she said she's written her book. She brought her book out now more recently saying, I just want to say this because those Those witnesses were true because I was in that network. It was real. It was extensive. It was throughout Europe. So they got it in Europe. You got the Franklin cover-up in Nebraska, and she talks about the initiation. And the initiation she wasn't 10, but as she went along, I think she was like 13 or 14. The initiation was she had to kill a 1-year-old baby girl.
Yeah. Oh,
And that was the same thing in Nebraska in the Franklin cover-up. They put two young underage girls they wanted to traffic. They put them in a room with a baby, and they had to kill the baby by morning, or they were going to be killed.
I have heard that this was the thing. This kind of behavior was going on at the island place of Epstein. That this was what was going on, and I heard this probably 15 years ago. Those kind of activities were taking place there.
Yeah. Well, and you've got stories now about Trump in Mar-a-Lago, and really scary stories about the way underage women are treated, what was going on there. What's so funny?
Oh, I had to
I'm laughing because Lee switched it to his screen and he's over there.
try to move my chair.
Trying to set himself up properly. Sorry.
Yeah, but these stories about Trump are very disturbing. So we know Trump was close to this guy. Are you telling me for years he was close to Jeffrey Epstein and he was not indulging in those girls? And we've got Trump's quote. Oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein, he has these fine young ladies and they are very young. It's like he shares the appreciation of attractive women and, very young ones. This is what he's saying years ago. Jeffrey Epstein, how do you explain that he gets caught the first time and they make it like a slap on the wrist? His jail thing was a joke. And still after that, he goes to Russia and meets with Putin. No. There's nobody guarding this hen house of a country. America is itself like one of these rape victims. It's mind control. It's psychopathy. It's brutal to control a country, to compromise people. Yeah, look at that. There's Bill Gates, and look at Jeffrey Epstein with his arms folded with his self-satisfying grin.
And the young man next to Bill Gates on the other side, this one right here, this is Boris Nikolak. Yeah. He was Bill Gates's chief scientific advisor.
And don't tell me he was from the former Soviet Union, right?
How did you guess?
I don't know. One of the Epstein letters was from this guy who said, I think it was 2004 on the letter, and the guy said, "Hey Jeffrey, you go to Russia a lot. Were your parents, KGB agents, and you were raised to be one?" Something like that. I mean, isn't that an interesting kind of letter? People that knew him were thinking, "Are you KGB?"
Yeah. Who asked
you
that?
go to Russia a lot.
You spent an awful lot of time over there. Did you see in the article, the Daily Mail? Let me just pull this up here. The Daily Mail article of did you see the photos that were in the article?
Yeah, ones with the faces blocked out.
Yeah, this is Epstein and Maxwell in Moscow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Look at the big fur hats. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And then they were. Let me see. I don't want to show that one. Here's Maxwell with a couple of Russian soldiers. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong there. Yeah, a couple of Russian army soldiers.
There's the one with the East German military hat on with the red star on it.
Yeah. And then you've got next photo here. Look at this. Really?
Yeah, there it is.
Seriously?
Really? There's the utility cap with the red star on it. Actually, that looks more Chinese than East German.
This is like a Chinese. Yeah, it's like a Chairman Mao hat.
This looks like Chinese or North Korean or something.
Yeah. Which they were obviously,
And look at that kind of the look on his face, like, aren't I clever? Don't give yourself away by being too obvious.
Here's my question. Okay, so you've got some of the other House Oversight Committee releases on this. You've got Noam Chomsky. He was on. Of course, we know his background. Right?
He's a influencer.
Yeah, of course. So
a syndicalist, right?
Yeah. Why is he not? Why does he not have a microscope on him? Okay, that's just a question.
He was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane too, wasn't he?
He was. He was talking. I've got a photo of him right here. He's with it right here.
Yeah.
Hello, right there he is.
That guy, Noam Chomsky, I was forced to read his awful books when I was in graduate school because the
Oh, you're
professors
kidding
loved
me.
him so much. Oh, no. I had to read a lot of Noam Chomsky. And it was all, America's evil, the Soviet Union. They've got some problems. They're maybe a little bad, but no, they're not like the United States. That was his way of coloring everything. And it was all twisted around and backwards. I mean, anybody that read that stuff was being disoriented by just reading Chomsky. It's pure disinformation.
Yeah.
And he's supposed
And
to
my
be
next
this expert on words.
Yeah. My next question: why is this not being asked about? This is Bannon and Epstein. Why is this not being
Bannon did that. Did you see they put some of it on YouTube? Did you see it at all?
No, I did not.
It's interesting to hear Epstein with his Brooklyn accent. Jimmy won't like it.
Probably not.
Yeah,
This
Epstein
and
was-
this the argument that I made when we were talking about it yesterday. I said we haven't seen really anything. I had somebody from the UK asking me this morning and said, "What do you think about the Epstein releases?" I said, "What releases?" They said, "Well, they released 3 million files," and I said, "They didn't release any names."
Well,
I said
there's
that most
3
of the names
million
are
more
redacted.
files they're not releasing, and I don't think they ever will.
And,
Because that's
that
where the
and-
really they figured out somehow where the really bad stuff was and they left it out. But there's enough in here circumstantially that what we thought, and then to have the Daily Mail with their sources in MI5, MI6 and the American services telling them behind the scenes is like, yeah, we know this guy is working for Russia. We've tracked him. We know what he's been doing. It's like Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was a KGB agent. Come on, people. This is pretty obvious stuff. Honey trap.
Somebody
Yeah.
has taken all of the files that were released and put them onto a web page that's set up like a Gmail browser. So you can actually go through all of the emails just like an email. You can look for dates, names, whatever you want. It's just like going through your Gmail. So I'm going to be spending some time there.
Yeah.
I wonder, could you? Well, we'll talk about that offline. we'll do that another way. But
Probably.
Yeah. The point I'm trying to make is that when we see these emails and these transcripts that are put out, these are important conversations. Some of these are key conversations that you would look at in a criminal investigation.
Yes.
Some real crimes have happened here, and I want accountability. I want to know whose name's behind that redaction. I want to see that. The American people, the people of Western countries, have a right to know who that is.
I hate to say this, but if the country does not have investigations and treason trials for the people involved in these pedo networks, if we don't get there at some point, there's not going to be a country here. We're going to go down because you can't go on like this and survive as a country, as a nation. And we can't close our eyes to it. We can't be ostriches in the sand. They are literally raping, abusing children, murdering babies, blackmailing public officials, law officers, CEOs, executives, scientists. There's a book on Epstein that talks about all the scientists that he dragged into his wake. How many secrets, how much technology, how much industrial know-how, how much was stolen from us? You talk about the theft of the Chinese, and that doesn't even count whatever flesh pots the Chinese are operating out in the Far East or Japan or, Thailand or whatever the Chinese are into. Probably the Russians are in Thailand too. What is Thailand? Ground zero for this pedophile stuff? I've heard things about Thailand.
Yeah, Thailand's the Russians are they like Thailand because they can do a lot of business through there. They can traffic a lot of people through there.
Yeah.
So the Russians are really big into prostitution in Thailand. So they'll run a lot of people through there.
Yeah.
So,
See, and maybe that's too nasty. Maybe the Chinese don't do this end of it, but I'd be surprised. They seem to copy everything the Russians do.
The Chinese, the triad specifically, they are involved obviously in prostitution and human
Sure.
smuggling and stuff like that. Of course they are.
But child
But
trafficking, you think?
they're the Chinese and the Japanese are more into heroin. when it comes to that. That's their bread and butter is heroin trafficking.
Yeah.
So,
The opium thing, the opium war thing.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Do you guys want to get to questions?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
All right. So, first one is: do you guys think that Diddy Sean Combs was involved in any of this? I know he's a bad guy, but I don't know that he's tied to Epstein.
I don't know. I heard a journalist talk about him and the things he was into. I mean, he was into some bad things. Certainly, Epstein was involved with entertainers, but I don't know of any direct involvement of Epstein and him. Do you?
Yeah, I don't.
I don't. I know obviously who the individual is, but I don't know if he's been involved in anything involving the Epstein stuff. I've not read or even heard that until now. But if you look at a lot of these celebrities, artists, sports stars, or whatever, there's always some kind of scandal going on usually, and it gets covered up or whatever. So for whatever reason, they've decided to throw this one to the wolves. Not saying he's innocent by any means, but
he's been compared to Epstein, but it echoes some of the same things. But obviously the allegations, and I don't know, but I don't think that he's been tied to Epstein, and he doesn't have to. All these people doing this have their own little universes orbiting other entertainment industry or other areas.
Oprah, we think, was supporting this type of activity. Look at some of the things that she did.
Oprah, really?
She delivered young women to sexual predators in Hollywood, many of them. Some people say, didn't Trump meet his wife through Epstein?
Melania, yes, that I have heard that allegation made. And in the emails, there are emails between Melania and Ghislaine Maxwell. They definitely were getting together. So that's definitely possible. I mean, Melania is from a communist family from the Eastern Bloc. Why are two of Trump's wives communist supermodels from communist families and countries? One, his first wife, communist Czechoslovakia, his third wife, communist Yugoslavia in their origins. What is this about this billionaire? Why does he like communist chicks? What does that mean?
He likes Russians. Period. I mean, look at the business dealings that he's done with Russians.
What was the Alaska meeting really about? I'm beginning to think now. Did he need to meet Putin in person because he couldn't communicate with him, over normal communications without being detected? Did he need to have some kind of signal from him?
Right. There's a few things to consider here. Okay. So I think obviously, yes, I believe that's one of them. But for Putin and Trump to talk, they needed an in-person meet, possibly to exchange something. Remember, they were in the back of the limousine by themselves.
Alone.
No interpreters. Yeah, alone. No interpreters.
Yeah. For how many minutes was that?
So it was whatever the ride was from where they were on the carpet to the building.
Okay, Vladimir, what do you need me to do? I don't understand. I'm confused by all this. And Vladimir is saying, look, there's been a change of plan. I have to tell you this, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's true that Putin was a handler, a KGB handler, and was involved in setting up some of these pedo rings, he would know exactly how to, lead these people and what they need to do.
Right. Remember on that point right there, it's very important to understand. Putin was a lieutenant colonel of the FSB. Okay. When you retire, quote, retire from the FSB, you don't retire. You become an officer of active reserve.
That's right.
He is not.
Reserves.
Vladimir Putin is not the president of Russia. He is a KGB lieutenant colonel who is an officer of active reserve who is on assignment.
He's a handler of foreign heads of state who have been recruited. That's what he is.
Yes. So you have the meeting, the Alaska meeting, okay? And I'll get back to that in a second. Backtrack 6 months before the election in the United States. Viktor Orban goes to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. This is
Another
a way
agent
for,
of Putin,
yeah,
yes.
this is a way for Putin and Trump to talk. This is another way, not publicly. They can't do it publicly. So he sends Orban, his little errand boy. So he goes down there and he talks to Trump. Okay, now jump to Alaska, right? And then here's the quandary. Here's the question that I have that Lee and I were watching. Why was there a plane from Beijing that landed just ahead of Putin's plane? Why? It landed just ahead of it.
And they didn't
parked
participate
it.
in the meeting.
No, they did not, and it was not reported, and it was not shown. The cameras only got turned on when Putin's plane was approaching. The Chinese plane, because I remember I called Lee, I said, why is there a Chinese plane? And he says, I don't know, I'm wondering the same thing. I said, well, let's watch where it goes. They parked them right next to each other. They got the parking lots right next to each other as they got off the planes. What were the Chinese doing there?
So was the head of Chinese intelligence the chauffeur driving the car that they got
Don't know. Don't know.
in? So that the three of them could be in?
The Chinese,
Putin
but my
doesn't
point is,
need a
the
translator.
Chinese were there.
Putin
No,
No,
speaks
he spoke perfect English.
I mean,
Look,
he
you
speaks
know,
perfect English.
he put up when he first came on American TV, he was on Larry King, and that was the year 2000 in October. He comes on Larry King. He made some kind of speech at the UN. He's on Larry King. He's got a translator, and Larry King goes, just a moment, we're going to go do a commercial, and Putin nods and says, okay. And it's like, no, he understood the English perfectly. We're going to a commercial. He understood it perfectly. I said, that guy knows English.
Oh, have you
Sure
seen him
enough.
speak English?
Oh, yes, he speaks English fine. Yeah, he speaks English fine. I think he has been speaking English for a lot longer. Oh, he's going to sing Blueberry Hill. Yeah, he's going to sing Blueberry
He's
Hill.
going to sing for you.
That's
Yeah.
very, for the Hollywood crowd. He's singing Blueberry Hill. No, this is very famous, very embarrassing, very stupid. But yeah, no, I mean,
You see, it's like Yeltsin. He was a jazz drinking whiskey, or a jazz loving whiskey drinking, whatever. Yeah.
and every one of those celebrities wishes they could take back this moment where they're appearing in the cameras. Of course, he's dead, that French actor.
He's dead. Yeah. What's his name?
Yeah,
oh,
no,
I
I
can't
mean,
think of his
look, this is what they did. They wined and they dined these people. They won these people over. It's just the swindle. If they can't blackmail you, bribe you, compromise you, trick you, fool you, make a total duper idiot out of you, they feel like they've wasted a day.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to greet members and guests of the
What happened to Lee?
I'm going to play Putin speaking for you.
Oh, not singing Blueberry Hill, please.
No.
Yeah.
I got
He's,
better.
You know what?
no,
I
no.
heard him speak at the there was a festival of youth and students in Sochi.
Yes.
And I heard him, he took the stage, and this is a crowd full of
Communist.
young, dumb college kids that are
Yeah.
wearing Lenin shirts and Che Guevara shirts.
They're
and
actually
all the rest
communist
of it.
activists.
guys
all
are-
Yeah,
over-
and
from all over
he's
the world.
standing, one second. He's standing up there and he says, we're here to support you. We're with you. We support you.
Yeah, you are
in-
the
in your-
future. We are with
Yeah.
you. Yes. In that speech.
In
And that
English.
was on, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. That was in October
Yeah.
of 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he really comes out with it if you're really paying attention. Those people, by the way, you people who believe he's a conservative, he's a Christian, I'm very sorry, you've been duped. But he's very convincing, although he has said publicly that Christianity is the same thing as Leninism.
Oh, yeah.
And you can
absolutely.
look that up. He said that multiple times. Of course, that is so ridiculous.
Jesus was
So all you
Russian.
Christians out there, you should know, you're Leninists. You're a bunch of Leninists.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to greet members and guests of the General Assembly of the International Exhibitions Bureau. Russia has a long and rich experience of participation in the World Expo movement. We took part in the very first Universal Exhibition in London in 1851, and at the Paris Exhibition in 1900. Our pavilion won the Colded Gold Medal and Grand Prix. But in all this time, Russia has not hosted the World Expo. Not once. Surely, time has come to change this. So, we proudly submit our bid to host World Expo 2020 in Yekaterinburg, a dynamic and promising city. Our bids organizing committee has the full backing of the Russian government. We guarantee it will be a priority national project. We are going to build a massive state-of-the-art complex with the capacity to host 30 million visitors over the course of the event. We plan to allocate all the necessary funding for its construction. I am confident we shall welcome guests from 150 nations of the world with pride and dignity. Now, once again, I would like to make this very clear. Russia guarantees to fulfill the complete range of requirements set by the International Exhibitions Bureau. In particular, we are preparing a special program of support for developing countries. This will enable around 90 countries to freely participate in the Expo, completely free of charge. I can assure you that our grand-scale plans for 2020 will be delivered if Yekaterinburg is given the honor to host World Expo 2020. Thank you for your attention, and I hope for your support.
There you
Very
go.
good pronunciation. Very good pronunciation.
Yeah.
Very good, Vladimirovich. Very good.
And to think he doesn't speak English.
Well, Stalin played that trick too. Stalin had some English. And so when he would sit down with Churchill and Roosevelt, he had all the time of the waiting for the translation. He had already heard what was said. So he could think about his reply. He had longer to think. It was an advantage for him.
Lee, can you switch back here? I need to show a book.
Oh, okay. Actually, I have, but.
Okay. Yeah, on the stream it wasn't. So for those that think that Putin is a nice guy, and he's just looking to have a good business relationship with the West and with people, I implore people to get this book right here. It's called The Corporation: Russia and the KGB in the Age of President Putin. And just look at some of the things that he and his colleagues are involved in. So there's another one. Jeff's talked about it before. I have it on the shelf behind me. And I believe, Jeff, maybe you're pulling the book that I'm about to mention. It's called From Russia with Blood.
I think is good because it has a personal touch. And that is The Man Without a Face by Masha Gessen. Right? And she actually directly interacted with, what the heck is going on? Something fell over. Masha Gessen interacted with him. He didn't really realize who she was, that she'd written a book against him. But the way she describes him, the megalomania of this guy, the control that he has in Russia, and the murderousness of his policies. Look, they hunt journalists and they murder them in Russia. They hunt dissidents like Litvinenko, like, you've got Navalny poisoned with Novichok and ultimately dying in the Gulag because he went back. I really didn't want him to go back because I felt they were going to kill him, and they did. And so it's just so tragic because anybody that's any good is going to be killed there. Anna Politkovskaya shot outside of her apartment. Very brave journalist. From Russia with Blood, that's a very good one. That's about all the murders in the UK that have been done by the Russians. And it's quite a grisly number of murders. And they don't only murder Russians, by the way. They were also killing UK citizens as well.
Yes. So I would recommend those two, and then the one, of course, that he just put up.
The biggest mafia on the planet.
Yes.
That's who they are.
Red Mafia by Robert Friedman is also a
Yes.
great book. Yeah.
Red Mafia.
All right, so we got a question for me in the chat. Lee, looking at all the ISR activity over Poland and the Baltics that you mentioned yesterday, what's your prediction on when Russia will attack NATO? I don't have a prediction as to when they're going to do it. All I can say is they're planning on doing it. They're moving all of this equipment in. They're moving all those troops in that direction. They're putting up all of these military bases. They're moving nuclear weapons into Belarus. It just looks like they're planning on doing it, as well as all the equipment that's been moving into Kaliningrad. You guys have thoughts on that?
Anytime in the next 17 months, it could start. I don't think they're ready right now, but it's either later this year, early first half of next year. It looks to me like on the scale that they're now, they could scale it back and they could change course, but that's the course they're on right now.
End of 2026. Yes, end of this year, somewhere along in there.
Have any of you fellows seen the documentary called Operation Odessa? No.
No.
Somebody said he won $85 million in Powerball under Zorro LLC. I don't know who that is.
Okay.
Give us some.
Yeah. Question to Jeff. The book you read about the abuse of the girls in Belgium.
Yes. Quest for Love.
Yeah. Was
by,
this related to Dutrosex? D-U-T-R-O?
Yes, Dutros. Yeah, Dutros. That's the Belgian Epstein. Yes.
And what's the name of the book?
The name of the book is Quest for Love, Memoir of a Sex Slave, I think is the subtitle, by Anne or Anneke Lucas. And you can get it on Amazon. There's a Kindle version on Amazon. You could get a hard copy, a paperback copy of it. She has done a couple of absolutely mind-bending interviews. This woman is so brave and so authentic. When you hear her, when she describes certain things that happened to her, she is having a hard time holding it together. This is not an act. This woman is the real deal. And the writing is really thoughtful. She started working on this book in 2004, I think, or around the time that this sort of scandal emerged in Belgium. And she was advised, don't publish this book. I mean, sure, literary agents, she had two of them say, don't do this. But she has. I don't know if it came out last year or when it came out, but I think it's really important for us to understand this Jeffrey Epstein thing, just like the, Senator, in Nebraska that wrote the Franklin cover-up. This is going on all over. This isn't just an isolated incident with Epstein.
All right, and let's see, where is it? Jeff, having went through your experience with academia, do you have any ideas on how to approach talking to others in order to help them understand? I feel so bad for the students that have no idea.
Yes, that is very hard. I mean, it was hard for me at the time to tell my father what I was experiencing because I didn't realize he didn't really take me seriously or believe. He thought I was just making some excuse for not succeeding in graduate school. And it was years later that he said he had just heard an academic, a guy with a PhD, saying, you can't get a PhD if you're a conservative in one of these schools in your political science. And he explained the whole thing. And my father, for some reason, because of his generation, he would only believe someone who had a PhD, right? He wouldn't believe me. So it's hard to get, because it sounds so incredible that, for example, I was invited to lunch and I don't remember, it was towards the end of my first year in graduate school, or and I had been in the teacher education program before that, and I get taken to lunch by this lady that I didn't even know was that friendly with me, and then in the middle of lunch, she says, they want a commitment. And I thought to say, well, who are they? But then that would have been hypocritical because I knew I had been invited to meetings. I had seen what was going on. And I just loved being a fly on the wall because I just couldn't believe this stuff was going on with communists taking over the university. And I what kind of cell thing is this? They want a commitment. And so I ultimately had to be honest with her and say, I don't believe in Marxism. And her response was, oh, okay, all right, that's fair. Right? But boy, that must have shocked him. And I realized later why they thought I would be open to it. So, and it was just, sometimes friendliness and interest is misconstrued as support. And my thing was to be friendly with everybody. I just didn't know that I was going to run into people like this, right? So, and of course, this is how I became an anti-communist, because I could see it was wrong. It was evil. It was clandestine. It was deceptive. It was the enemy of our way of life and our system and our country and our traditions, and our foreign enemy. And I wanted to know everything about this that I could. That's how I ended up here.
I have somebody that's sent me a question for you, Jeff. The question is, the way Lavrov, Dmitriev, and Zakharova are commenting on the Epstein files, it very, very much looks like the demoralization part in Suvorov's overture. How do you look at it?
Yeah, I think we're close enough to the end game in their view, because they're sort of desperate. They have to make this war work, and they've pushed their economy to the breaking point. They got to go to war or collapse us or something. So they have nothing to lose. They're going to use this information the best they can, and sort of leaking it a little bit at a time puts pressure on the Western leaders. But in the end, just like Suvorov said, they're going to dump it all. And there's going to be so much sewage on our leaders, and they're going to invent things. I mean, they got deep fakes now. They can make anybody look like a pedophile now. And because so much of this information leaks slowly and being vetted will be verified, when the fake stuff comes out, everybody will just assume it's real. And that way they will make sure that there's nobody that the public will trust. And you're going into a war where people are putting their lives on the line and trusting their leaders with their lives. And when you get a situation where you realize your leaders are scum, is anybody going to fight for these Western countries when this all comes out? This is what the Russians are counting on, is the massive demoralization. Absolutely. And it's in Viktor Suvorov's book, Spetsnaz, published in the UK, I believe, in 1987. The chapter is called Spetsnaz's First World War. It's about World War III, the opening to World War III, what he calls the overture, or the preparatory period of war, when there's terrorism and there's sabotage like we're seeing today in the West, then there's these scandals that are destroying leaders.
I have taken the liberty, if we could do this for just a few minutes, Lee. I haven't told you about this, Jeff,
What?
but I've taken the liberty. Yes, I've pulled all of your books, Jeff, and I want to show them, and I want you to tell people about, just a brief of each one of them so they know what to buy. So I started with this one. Right, you already know what this is.
Origins of the First World War is my workbook. I started writing it in 1987 because I knew the Soviet Union was going to collapse, because I became persuaded that these defectors, particularly Sena and Golitsyn, were telling the truth. That's why I started it.
Yeah. Red Jihad.
Red Jihad, I did that with Cliff Kincaid, and he was talking about Israel. My part of the book is talking about Russia faking the collapse and actually writing in Pravda, haha, we fooled you, you're disarmed and we're getting ready and there's nothing you can do, and how they're basically getting ready for World War III. And that book was written, 2016?
I believe so, and because when I got it the day after the October 7th, 2022, I got it the day after. 2016 is when it was written, and I was reading it, and I was going through literally shocking page after shocking page, and I'm like, these guys could have written this morning.
Right.
It was that accurate. It was that accurate.
The defector literature gives you a good map of where we're going because these guys are describing a long-range strategy. Suvorov is describing the military tactics, the Maskarovka. The others are describing the more strategic political end. Yeah.
Sword of the Revolution and the Communist Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's written by Cliff Kincaid. I didn't write that book.
I thought you did a piece in here somewhere.
Oh, there might be something by me in there.
I think you did a piece or a chapter in here somewhere. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember though. I've written too many things. I've written several thousand things, so I can't always.
All right, this one, Back from the Dead, Return of the Evil Empire.
Oh yeah, that's a kind of a fun one. Konstantin Preobrazhensky, myself and Cliff and another guy wrote that book. My section was about, of course, this whole deception that's gone on and how we've been sucked into this notion, and now they're bringing the Soviet Union back.
Okay.
This is my favorite little book, The Fool and His Enemy. It's like a 3.5-hour read. And this book is about how we are being programmed to go against ourselves, to be our own enemy. And there is the metaphysics of the psychology of the end of days, which of course connects with Dugin and all these weird themes that we're seeing now, including the UFO stuff as a sort of way of controlling history. They want to control all the narratives.
On the front of this, you got the picture of George Bush and Putin.
And Putin,
there.
how good friends
Yeah.
they were at one time.
Yes, and I also have this. Yeah, they're having dinner at the Kremlin. Did you see the man who's serving the food in the corner over there?
Oh yeah.
You see that, Lee?
Yeah.
You see who's serving the food?
Yeah. Mr. Hot Dog Salesman himself.
The Wagner
That's him.
mercenary leader.
Best hot dogs this side of Moscow. Yeah.
It's very strange.
This is a very unique book. I've never read a book in a format like this before, and this is, I have to be honest, this was really a pleasure to read. This one.
Oh, the New
Tactical
Texas
Global War.
Global War. I got talked into doing that. They had some new software. I think that was in 2017, or was it in 2015? They had some new
2015.
software in 2015. It was after Ukraine had been invaded, and we were talking about this, and I were having discussions with Benjamin Baruch and this other fellow who wrote a bunch of books. And I said, look, I'm working 60 hours a week. I'm really plagued. He says, no, look, this thing can make a transcript of a talk. We can get on the phone and talk, and it'll make the transcript. And sure enough, it made an amazingly clean transcript, and I basically went through it, edited it, made it into a book, and that's what we had. It's like it's almost like a Socratic dialogue kind of thing. We were having a discussion about this. Yeah.
And I got this one in a hardback, actually.
Oh yes, The Lies We Believe In. That's a bunch of my articles chosen by a Brazilian publisher who published it in English. And there's a Brazilian translation, Brazilian Portuguese translation. Yes, The Lies We Believe In. Also, The Fool and His Enemy is translated into Brazilian, Portuguese, and German. So there's editions in two other countries. I
give them out as gifts over here.
Nice.
Yeah. So I would recommend those books, and of course, this is a must-have. I showed this earlier.
That is a must. Joe Douglas was that was his greatest work, I think.
Yeah. And if you can be lucky enough to pick up, if you can find a copy of this, this is a difficult one to find, but the red cocaine, this is the Russian side of things. Sorry about the lights, but Psychochemical Warfare, if you can see the subtitle there, the Chinese Communist Drug Offensive Against the West. This is specifically about the Chinese operation.
And who's the author of Psychochemical Warfare?
A.H. Stanton Candlin. I'll put you can see it there.
Candlin, I see.
Yeah.
I
sent you a digital copy of this.
That's right, you did.
If you cannot find this in print, if you go to the Internet Archive, same thing with red cocaine. Red cocaine is very difficult. I was lucky enough to find this copy.
That is the original copy. That's the original version, which is what you want.
Yes.
You don't want the Christopher Story version.
Yeah. So, well, the Christopher Story version, the second edition, is where I got this book. This was in the footnotes of that book.
Yeah.
I didn't
We
get
had
this out.
many more footnotes in that second
Yeah.
edition.
But if you cannot get either one of these books, I was fortunate enough to get these. I went on eBay and I got them. Well, the other one I had to go through a private seller. But the printings of these were like one printing. So and then they were gone. Mm-hmm. So if you cannot find them, if you go over to the Internet Archive, so archive.org, myself and a couple of others have scanned these and we've put them up there free of charge for people to get digitally if you want to read them in PDF form. So if you have a tablet or something, you can read them that way.
That's nice.
All right, so the next question is, do you think there might be a strategic reason why Obama changed the Smith-Mundt Act that allows the use of propaganda against U.S. citizens, and it hasn't been undone yet? Yeah, I think Obama wanted to be able to lie to the American public, and they got rid of that act so as that they could lie to the American public. You guys have thoughts on that?
I do not have any comment on that. I don't know the whole backstory of all of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that was used to prevent anti-communists from being able to do things within the military and the government and educating people back when. And Obama, of course, there was no threat by the time you have Obama after the fall of the Soviet Union that anybody would want to educate anyone on anti-communism. So I think having it repealed, that appealed then to some indoctrination, which of course, this is what critical race theory within the Army and the military has been. Critical race theory is calculated to destroy the morale and the sense of patriotism of the military.
How was Diddy and also the railroad trafficking involved? I'm not aware that Diddy was involved at all with Epstein.
Yeah, no, that's what I said. I didn't hear. They've compared him to Epstein, but it seems to be his own deal, maybe. I don't know. I don't know that much about him.
Did this jump here? What's with all the military aircraft over the UK recently? They're just doing laps below Wales. Yeah, they got training. It goes on over there all of the time. They're trying to get more prepared for what the Russians are doing along the Baltic. Do you think that Trump can be so immature that when people say he's a Russian operative, he says, okay, I'm going to be that? No, I think that Trump has been working with the Russians since the early 80s. I don't think it's anything new at all. I think he's been doing it since before his first wife. That's my opinion.
That's interesting. What makes you think that he was recruited? Now, when did he marry his first wife? Was that 79?
Yeah,
He
79.
was in the 80s?
Yeah. What makes me think he was recruited?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's lots of things that make me think he was recruited. Look at the article that cost $250,000 back in the 80s that he put into the Wall Street Journal, a full-page ad supporting the Russian position and speaking against NATO. Look at all of the millions and millions and millions of dollars that he has received from Russian oligarchs for pieces of property at some of his properties that weren't anywhere near worth what they paid for. Look at the Russian oligarchs that are on his board. And when he was asked about those oligarchs being on his board, he said, oh, I wouldn't know him if I saw him. But yet the guy actually lived one floor below Trump and met with him regularly. And Trump had sold him multiple pieces of property. And, so the fact that there's been so many millions of dollars thrown at Trump from Russians for things that weren't worth that. I mean, you know, if you've got a condo in a building that everybody else is paying $500,000 for back in the 80s, and somebody comes along and pays you $4 million for the same condo, doesn't that look a little odd? So there's just go ahead.
The suggestion is that they enriched him.
Absolutely.
And you know, it was just to remind people, former KGB agent Yuri Shvets and former Kazakh intelligence chief Alner Masayev alleged that Trump was recruited during a visit to Moscow in 1987. Now that's their allegations. There is also an allegation of a GRU officer who defected to Slovakia, I believe. The article came out of there. I read it. It didn't get a lot of play here in the United States, but he was a GRU officer who just happened to be working with this branch of the KGB that Alner Masayev worked at, which was, they were the branch that recruited Western businessmen. So.
All right, sorry.
And a lot of that money.
We've got three former Soviet intelligence officials saying he was a recruited. What did they call him? Not an agent. They called him a friendly source, or what's the term?
They ran a lot of the money. It's important for people to know they ran a lot of the money through the casinos and through a lot of the construction companies and property development. So the Trump properties and stuff like that. That's how they were able to do it.
Yeah, Craig Unger wrote the book that alleged that we relied on Yuri Shvets. I read Yuri Shvets's book. He wasn't a very impressive defector, and he wasn't very high level. But following Trump's visit to Moscow in '87, as Lee has said, he ran full-page ads in major U.S. newspapers criticizing American foreign policy from a admittedly Soviet point of view at the time. Of course, the Mueller report, which one has to wonder about, which was the 2019 special counsel investigation, did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government. So that didn't work, but they weren't looking at any of this other stuff. They weren't looking at his real estate business for money laundering, Russian mafia money, or Russian intelligence money, which is basically, it's the same thing.
That's red cocaine money, people.
Yeah. Well, it's how they finance. Look, they use drugs and other illegal activities to finance espionage operations over here.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole point. You know, that's why they said we're going to take over organized crime, right? We're going to have access to unlimited amounts of money. We're going to have access to unlimited amounts of high-profile information.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? Right. It's a win-win.
It's great intelligence, and it's a great way to get corrupt people that want to work with you.
Yeah, and I mentioned the book. We were talking about the Volstead Act last week. You brought that up. We were in the gangster era, all of that, Al Capone and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We were talking about communist organized crime, and the book that J. Edgar Hoover wrote, his first book about the gangster area and organized crime, called "Persons in Hiding." If you can find a copy of it, good luck to you. I did find one on Amazon US, and I think it was like $75. But he said even then, and that book was written in the 1920s, 100 years ago, that book was written. And in that book, he was saying then, he said, behind every single politician, you're going to find corruption. Every last one of them. You're going to find corrupt lawyers, and behind corrupt lawyers, you're going to find corrupt gangsters, and you're going to find more corruption behind that. All of that's going to flow from organized crime. That was the point he was trying to make. And that was 100 years ago.
Yeah, because prohibition just rotted our system instantly, because when you made alcohol, people drink alcohol. You can't make it illegal. You made it illegal. So what happened is the police have a monopoly on it then. So the
Yeah.
police can enrich themselves, the politicians that control the police, the mayors, the lower level politicians, by the time you get done the whole thing, the police are the organizers of organized crime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
And when
just
they
the way
were
it works.
when Elliot Ness and his guys, when his team, when they were getting ready to go on their first raid, one of the guys asked him, "Are you sure you're ready to do this? Because if you do this, you better go all the way." And Ness said, "Absolutely, let's go." And he said, "Okay." So they walked out of their office, walked down the stairs, walked across the street into the federal post office building. And that's where the first raid was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's see here. Dynamic independence is available via video or audio only. Normally it's audio.
Audio.
Only, correct?
Audio only, with the exception of the one that we did yesterday. It's on Lee's channel here.
An obscure.
It's on all platforms. Yeah, go ahead.
An obscure book from the 70s called "None Dare Call It a Conspiracy" said that America will fall from a Republican president. I don't think that's the case. I've seen more destruction.
I am familiar with that book.
I've seen
Yeah,
more
I'm
destruction
familiar
in the
with-
United States by the Democratic Party than I have from the Republican Party. I mean,
I'm familiar with that book, but I don't know the specifics of it. I've not read it.
I mean,
So
look,
None Dare Call It Treason is a better book.
yeah, look at what Bill Clinton has done in providing Minuteman missiles to the Chinese, the Loral missile. Look what Clinton has done in opening trade with China. Look what
He
Obama
gave nuclear
did.
technology to the North Koreans.
Yep, look what Obama did with supporting the Arab Spring. Look what Obama did with providing billions of dollars to the Iranians. Look what Obama did with giving U.S. Special Forces fast boats to the Iranians so they could get all of our technology. Look what was done with the P-3 Orion that was landed in China.
Our Sentinel in Iran.
Right. Yep. Or the Sentinel in Iran. Look what Obama did with Secretary of Defense Gates providing intel to the Iranians. Look what Biden did with letting all of these illegals into the United States. So I've seen way more destruction of this country and strengthening our enemies from Democrats than I've ever seen from Republicans.
You get me to disagree with that, but the problem is that you have a different kind of destruction when it comes to Republicans. The Democrats will do things like they will make an open border. They will change things in the United States that will damage us long term, in terms of social policy, build up the welfare state to bankrupt us. They will give away things like Jimmy Carter, basically pulled the rug out from under Somoza and the Shah of Iran. Those countries went to our enemies. And those are the things that Democrats will do. But Nixon went to China, opened China with Kissinger. That was a terrible disaster because China is now the best enemy money can buy. We invested in China. We built that up. We made it into a monster enemy. And thank you, Richard Nixon. And everybody congratulates us. It's just brilliant opening up China. No, it wasn't. It was a horrific mistake. And, Reagan, trust but verify. What do you mean trust but verify? What if it isn't verified? Do you then say, I'm a fool, I've got egg on my face? No, you just sort of ignore the fact that they didn't follow through on what they wanted, like in the IMF agreement. People warned. Senator Malcolm Wallop went against Reagan and said, no, you can't make a deal with these people. And of course, it was a mistake to accept Gorbachev at his word. So every Republican president made these mistakes, but Trump is not a conservative. And Trump is threatening Iceland. He threatened tariffs on 8 countries that weren't helping push Greenland, the Greenland deal through. He talked about our beautiful 51st state, Canada, so that the Canadian prime ministers run to China. Canadians, they're going to be training 300,000 Canadians with rifles now because they feel threatened. They do feel threatened there. I know Canadians. I was there in December. They feel threatened. They do. And you would too if a big country's leader, the biggest country in the world, supposedly in terms of power, threatened to annex you. And you weren't a particularly big country. These are monstrous things that came out of his mouth. So, yeah, Trump is he's just a different way to send us to hell than Biden and Obama. It's a different way.
Jeff, would you briefly want to talk about the second part of your 5-part essay you published yesterday?
Well, we've been talking about it. I mean, it's about the Epstein thing. It's about Trump, being a crazy guy, the Slovakian president saying behind closed doors, according to Politico, and I think they're right. They're quoting sources, and of course, both the White House and Mr. Fico deny it, but he's saying behind closed doors, Trump has lost his mind. He's completely crazy. He's traumatized. This prime minister of Slovakia, conversing with Mr. Trump. Why? Because Trump is saying these things that are really scary for a European leader. So what's going on with him? Why is he acting like this? Why doesn't he follow through on Venezuela? I couldn't believe Megyn Kelly saying, now that he controls Venezuela. Trump doesn't control Venezuela at all. No. They're going on, they're controlling, the communists are still controlling it. It's not changed. And he's promising help to Iran. Tick tock, nothing's happening. And so I asked the question, I look at the Epstein stuff and the headline of the Daily Mail saying that he's, that Epstein was running this KGB pedophile honey trap, and then looking at what we know about Trump and Jeffrey Epstein being close friends for years. This is too much, right? And then I go into the problems with the CIA, why this could have happened, why this is not incredible. CIA is a failed organization. What about the CIA behind the CIA? I talk about that. Tell about the schizophrenic taxi cab driver and other adventures or misadventures, and how people, they want to believe in QAnon. Q saying, trust the plan, right? No, I'm sorry, the plan is a scam. We're being scammed.
Operation Trust. That's where it came from. So they just ran the same playbook over again. That's all they did. Same thing,
right? So I go over this and I say, look, we're in trouble. This is not what I hope to be writing about.
Is there going to be a military operation in Iran, or are they serious about negotiating? Iran is not serious about negotiating, and the U.S. is serious about hitting them. So I think the U.S. is going to hit Iran, and I think it's going to happen in the very near future.
I had a Russian source, 6 years ago, and he died. But one of the things that he said before he died is that Russia and China had gotten together and they wanted World War III to start in Iran. They wanted the U.S. to get caught in a thing with Iran, and then they would begin the war. And Russia would be involved in Eastern Europe, but that they would go after in the Pacific, Japan or the U.S. or whatever, and they would go from there. And I think some of the things you've seen, Lee, I'm very worried since Russia's engaged in a big mobilization now, much bigger than the previous years, and they're using the Ukraine war to justify it. China is mobilizing, claiming there was an attempted coup by General Zhang. And supposedly Zhang and Liu, these two top generals, were arrested, but we've got no evidence. But they're mobilizing. So are they mobilizing? Is this coup thing just a smokescreen that they're mobilizing in combination with the Russians and the Venezuelans and the Iranians, and that we're headed into a world war?
It surely
That's my
looks like
question.
they are.
Yeah, that I'm worried about that because mobilization is war. The Russians are mobilizing now. The Chinese are mobilizing. No, this is very bad news. I'm not sure I'm buying this coup thing anymore.
Yeah, I'm not.
And we're not mobilizing, by the way.
Right.
We're not mobilizing. We're doing
immobile.
nothing.
They mobilize and we don't,
Right.
and
That's right.
they catch us
Yeah.
totally flat-footed, and we lose the first part of the war. Or maybe we lose the entire war.
Wasn't Trump a Democrat before a Republican, and what's the difference?
Well, the difference right now is, and communists told me this 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, Democratic Party was infiltrated to be taken over by the Communist Party. So the Communist Party doesn't run any candidates anymore. They just tell their people to vote Democrat.
You were
So
told that at a dinner.
I was told that at a presentation given by a Communist Party member in March of 1983.
83.
And yeah, that's when I was told we were taking over the Democratic Party through its left wing, and we're going to elect a stealth communist president. And there's going to be an economic crisis in the U.S., and we're going to socialize the economy, and we're going to run everything like the Soviet Union. That's what he said. That was back then. Bill Clinton's name came up by one of the people there who said that, Bill, we have such high hopes for this young governor, Bill Clinton in Arkansas, in this
In
context.
83.
In 83, yeah.
Wow. And nobody knew really who he was.
I didn't know who he was the first time I heard his name. I definitely got to understand his name later on. That was when I was in teacher education. That was my first really exposure to it. That's when they first started to like me. They invited me to things because I went into teacher education then, and then my work schedule was so bad I left for a couple of years. I came back in 85 to finish my teaching credential. And then I went to graduate school, but that was the period that I sort of fell in with those people. But yeah, that's how far back it goes. So the Republican Party, they get involved in, well, we want to invest in China, and Nixon's so great he went to China, so we're going to play the China card against Russia. So you see, they have their avenue in to be buddy with communists too. So, and then later detente and so on, and then perestroika and glasnost later on with Gorbachev and Reagan and Bush. So both parties are used by the Russians in different ways. More recently, the MAGA movement has taken over the Republican Party, and what they are is they've got these strange right-wing themes that can be merged. You could call it right-wing Marxism.
Convergence.
Yeah, like Tucker Carlson and the way these people talk. And of course, the anti-Semitism is a kind of, like, it's long been said that anti-Semitism is the stupid man's Marxism. That's been a saying for a long time.
For Bill Clinton, to that point, hang on just a second. I don't want to gloss over this. To the Bill Clinton point, in 83, you have to stop and think. Now, why would someone who is a communist, why would they be pointing at Bill Clinton? Hillary Clinton, let's look at her, wrote her college thesis dedicated to Saul Alinsky. Saul Alinsky wrote Rules for Radicals, right? For anybody that wants to look that up, the book is painful to read, but it's very important. And in that book, he dedicated that book to Lucifer.
Yeah, Satan.
Yep.
The original rebel, the original revolutionary, right? Revolutionary against
Yep.
God.
That's right. Oh, did I tell you, speaking of which, did I tell you that a woman was arrested in Moscow? She called up the authorities and she threatened to torch the mausoleum that Lenin's in. Yeah. She got drunk and she was going to do it. She wanted to show off on social media for her friends. And so she called the authorities, because she wanted to make a big deal out of it.
Did she get gasoline cans and matches
She
out?
had all kinds of, supposedly she had all kinds of explosives or something, and she was going to go out and do it. But when the police showed up and arrested her, she didn't have anything. But they still arrested her, obviously, for the threats.
Obviously, because they want to preserve Lenin's mausoleum.
Yes.
Do these elites use a different version of the Cloward-Peven strategy?
No, they use the colored pivot strategy. All right.
And then Colin put 20 Trump hotels and casinos in 20 unfriendly countries per year. I'm not aware of that. So that's all I've got. You guys got anything you want to add here before we end this out?
I don't think so. No, I think it's been a great show as always. It's a pleasure to sit down with you guys. So look forward to it next week.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely do that. Jeff, you got anything?
No, I'm exhausted. I've been podcasting since 10.
Yeah, well, I know that feeling.
These days are not going to get any shorter, my friend.
No, I'm not going to get any shorter.
We're going to lose more days on top of this. So we were talking about doing 2 a week at some point. We're talking about it. It's not, nothing's been hammered out yet, but.
All right, well, folks, I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to thank you gentlemen for being here, and we will see you again next week. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here.
That's all, folks.